Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast.
Jay, this just in from Neil, our roving reporter. No one puts the fun in dysfunction like the Cleveland Browns, and like a man who's run out of toilet paper, Freddie Kitchens has got a big job on his hands.
Yes, I mean, the easy question is, which team does Mitchell Trubisky play for? All right, well, I'll take the other team.
I don't mess with forces I don't understand.
Yeah, probably because I figured you'd do something like this.
That was just dripping with smugness. It's tough to listen to.
That's the email I read, not the show. It's the Week 10 previews. We've got the locks and the Monty specials.
Adam and Eve on a raft, a cup of muck, and an upset special.
Here we go.
That's how we start! Yeah, baby!
32 SuperFans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One PodVader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to the They Finally Lost edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. Hey everybody, PodVader here. They finally lost. You know exactly who I'm referring to. And I'm going to try not to refer to them again. Well, there's probably going to be a few times I refer to them, but not right now, because I'm going to refer to our super fans who are joining me today to break down all of the games here in Week 10 of the NFL. We're now past the midway point. Some teams haven't quite made it there yet, but they'll get there. Only 2 more weeks of bye weeks left. 6 teams on bye this week: Denver, New England, Philly, Washington, Jacksonville, and Houston. And to help me break it all down, I will start with the guy who's been here every week, and that is our Eagles superfan, James. Hello, James.
Hey, Pod. Hey, guys. Audience, if you're listening, just know that I'm shaking my head because our SuperFan Power Rankings are questionable at best and laughable at worst.
Yeah, sure. Across the pond is our Washington superfan, back once again. It is Neil. Hello, Neil.
Hey.
Nope. Back. Neil's not back.
And there goes Neil again.
That sucks. But it's okay, folks. Even though we may not have Neil, we have Monty, our Raiders superfan, who's watching Star Wars right now.
Raiders. You guys ready for the game tonight? Let's go shock the world, Oakland. Let's do it.
I don't know about that. Also
Monty,
joining us on today's podcast, I believe it is Don, our Ravens superfan. Hello, Don.
What's going on, Pod? What's going on, fellas?
This is awesome. So Don's here. So Don and James will put me in my place a little bit later on in this particular podcast. If you'd like to join in the fun, all you have to do is email us, nextfanup@gmail.com. You can tweet us at NFU Podcast, facebook.com/NFU Podcast. In the Pigskin Pick'em, 1 week after the easiest week in Pigskin Pick'em history, it turns out to be a little bit more difficult, especially for me. I only got a mere 6 correct straight up. I'm not even going to bother to tell you how many against the spread. Power Rankings got 8. Every single home team that played in their home stadium won on Sunday. The exceptions were the 49ers, Texans, and Cowboys. They were the away victors in Week 9, and the Texans were over in London. So that was even a bigger away game for them, I suppose. Let's talk pass interference, gentlemen, before we jump into all the other goodies here. Full breakdown done here by Pro Football Focus. And you can hear the ad playing in the background. And sorry, it was Pro Football Talk, not Pro Football Focus. 63 total replay reviews of pass interference calls and non-calls have occurred through the first 9 weeks. Of those, only 9 decisions made on the field have been overturned by Al Riveron and or his lieutenants. For offensive pass interference, 26 reviews have occurred. Of those, 11 were reviewed after rulings on the field of offensive pass interference. On 15 occasions, a non-call of offensive pass interference was reviewed. Of the 11 OPI rulings, 8 were initiated by coaches, 3 came from the automatic review process, 9 were upheld, 2 were overturned. No coaches' challenges of OPI rulings have been successful. The 2 reversals came from the automatic review process. Overall, the success rate for coaches' challenges of pass interference calls and non-calls stands at 9.4%, with 53 challenges, only 5 reversals. The automatic process has been a little bit better. No reviews of defensive pass interference calls or non-calls have resulted in a reversal, but for offensive pass interference, the automatic process has a 66.7% success rate, with 4 of 6 resulting in the ruling on the field being changed. Ultimately, this has been a huge failure for the NFL in challenging offensive pass interference or pass interference in general. I don't know if there's anything that we can do about it, but Don, since you just joined the show, what do you think about the pass interference rule?
I mean, they were under the gun with, after that Saints-Rams debacle to to make some kind of a change. And as usual, the NFL overthinks things and makes a change in the wrong direction. So I see coaches using it more nowadays to almost like a Hail Mary attempt. Like if it's, I don't know which game I was watching. I don't know if it was the Monday night game or what it was, where somebody challenged it. There was no way it was going to get overturned, but that way they get more time to huddle things up, and they lose a timeout. But they were getting close to the 2-minute warning, I think, so it didn't matter a whole lot. But sometimes, I mean, people still want to challenge it, and I don't get it. I mean, there should be a guy upstairs telling the coach, "Hey, don't even bother." But sometimes they're just so trigger happy just to throw that flag. But I think disaster has been a good way to put it. And hopefully, if they're saying it'll be one and done, they won't have this again next year. But then again, with the NFL, the powers that be, you just never know.
Monty, what do you got on this?
I mean, the NFL is they're not consistent with the way they do enforce any of these rules. So I think until they get a corporate sponsorship to start paying them money to make these a little bit more objective, they're just going to keep on, overcorrecting one way, making a mistake, overcorrecting the next day, and it's just going to be a joke. Just keeps the NFL in the news cycle and people complaining about the games during the regular season.
This offensive pass interference call brought to you by radar detectors when you want to avoid the cops.
You got it. It's all part of the grand scheme.
James, what do you got?
In some regards, it had to be done. We already mentioned the NFC Championship game. We knew this ruling was coming down because, first and foremost, Sean Payton is on the competition committee. There was no way this wasn't going to get pushed through for this season. Unfortunately, the execution and at this point of the season, has it helped or hurt? Yes and no. Sometimes it's a waste of time. You got coaches out there. First of all, challenging offensive pass interference is one of the hardest things to do because the only egregious thing that really gets called as pass interference from the offensive side is a push-off. Other than that, if there's hand fighting by both parties, the refs are never going to throw that flag. So I never understand why coaches challenge that to begin with. And most of the defensive pass interference calls are clearly egregious on about a 98% clip because you either have the corner or linebacker face guarding the receiver and just plowing him over, throwing his hands up like, I'm not touching him, and the ball hit him in the head, not even giving the receiver a chance to make a play on the ball. Or they're just flat out tackling the receiver before the ball gets there. So some of these challenges, I question the head coaches. The rule itself, while good intentioned, is pretty much, as everyone else said, blown up in the NFL's face.
Let's go back to the youth movement that seems to be occurring this year in the NFL. Through the first 9 weeks, 110 of 135 overall games have featured at least one quarterback under the age of 27. That's the most at this point in a season in league history. In total, quarterbacks under age 27 have started 146 games, recorded 76 wins. That's a 52.1%. Both the most starts and wins by quarterbacks under the age of 27 through the first 9 weeks of a season since at least 1970. And we're going to add one more to the mix this week as Ryan Finley will make his first NFL start. Finley will become the sixth rookie to make his starting debut this season, joining Kyler Murray, Gardner Minshew, Devlin Hodges, Daniel Jones, and Dwayne Haskins. Neil is trying to return, and I mentioned his quarterback. Is Dwayne Haskins the future for the Washington Redskins, or are they going to be in the hunt for one of these quarterbacks that are coming up in the upcoming draft?
No, Jay. Washington will not be in for one of the quarterbacks. Great by any stretch of the imagination, but encouraging, and have a red shirt season. And, let's see what he does in year two.
Monty, are you... is Derek Carr under 27?
Boy, he's right on the cusp if he's not. I think he's right there. He's definitely signed his second deal, so he's on the other end of the youth movement. I think everyone's trying to get the jackpot of getting that rookie quarterback contract and then loading up the rest of their team like we've seen in recent moves, but that's not the Raiders' MO since Carr became one of the $100 million guys. I'm not 100% sure on his age, but I could probably dig it up for you.
He's 28. Interesting. His brother's 40. That's a big gap between two boys. I wonder if they have another sibling in between there. Oh, he does, as a matter of fact. He's the third sibling. Okay. Wonder what happened to the second child. All right. Anyway. Yeah, the youth movement is interesting. It's going to push out some of these veterans. And, James, you and I talked about this last week. There's really not a lot of openings unless some of these veterans end up retiring, like Rivers and Brady. Those would be interesting places for youth quarterbacks to end up on, or maybe one of these guys that are going to get pushed out, like perhaps Cam Newton. Andy Dalton, I would say, is probably seeing his last days in Cincinnati. We've got an interesting crop of quarterbacks coming into next year, both from the rookie class and veterans that are going to be available.
Indeed, and we haven't even taken into account what will happen in the future as far as coaches getting fired, so a new regime wanting to have their guy in-house and getting rid of the quarterback that's already there. Two other cities that I can think of off the top of my head, we know are going to probably have different quarterbacks, the Tennessee Titans, possibly the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because we don't know what's going to play out with their situations by the end of the season. Though the Bucs seem, Arian seems to love everything Winston is done overall this year. Yeah, he's had his ups and downs, but that notwithstanding, those are the only other two spots that I can think of. Obviously, Miami goes without saying because we know they're tanking for Tua. But outside of those three cities, I don't see many other spots because most teams have a quarterback they drafted, as far as the youth movement this year or last year, or they have an established young quarterback from 3 or 4 years ago. So in places like Philadelphia and Dallas and Houston, Baltimore, you have these guys already established, entrenched as your starting quarterback for the foreseeable future. Those guys aren't going anywhere. Your old timers, if you will, notwithstanding, in Pittsburgh, LA, the Chargers, that is, New England and Green Bay. I mean, those guys aren't going anywhere anytime soon. It's kind of like, well, when they want to retire, they'll retire.
Well, I mean, the rumors are starting to get hotter and hotter about Brady's retirement at the end of this season. Rivers, I don't know why the rumors are coming out about Rivers. Of course, if the Chargers were to move to London, which was rumored this week, and they've come out hot and heavy saying that's just not true, I'd like to see him try and commute from San Diego to London every day. I mean, one heck of a
team
commute.
is moving to London, Jay.
And then, yeah, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, I think, is the one guy out of those three that is definitely not going anywhere anytime soon. I think he's well established despite the loss last week. And you mentioned the tanking for Tua by Miami. They really screwed up last week by winning. If the season were to end right now, and this just in, it won't, Miami would actually be fifth in the draft. depending on where you place the tiebreaker with the Atlanta Falcons. The Jets would actually draft before Miami in the same